Hello everybody, Backyard Bullion here. So today I want to talk a little bit about mistakes and regrets. You, me, everybody out there, we've probably made a decision at some point relating to silver coins, numismatics, which with hindsight we probably look back on and think is not necessarily the best decision that we've ever made. But it's, it's an interesting topic, and it's one that I've been inspired to talk about from the Silver Forum. There's a really interesting thread, and I'll put a link to it in the description below, with a collection of people's stories about the different mistakes or regrets that they've had or made or got about purchases that they've done for silver or gold in the past. And I think it's a really interesting topic because you don't often hear a lot about the negatives. You don't hear a lot about the flops. And I highlighted that a couple of weeks ago when I talked about kind of the proof silver coins that end up on junk melt piles. You don't often hear about those flop coins. You hear about all of the successes and all of the major winners out there, but you don't hear about the flops. So I want to talk a little bit about that. Now I've got here on the table a whole big eclectic mix of junk, basically. These are some of the mistakes, I guess you could call them, that I've made along the way when pouring silver, when stamping silver, and yeah, I wanted to share with them you guys, because normally on a Sunday I'd share with you a lot of the kind of really nice pieces which I've made, the product of the week, so to speak. But this is kind of the rejects of the week, or at least of the last couple of weeks, because there's quite a few in here which have been hanging around in the melt box for quite a while. So yeah, I thought I'd talk about that. So where else to begin? I guess there's one big interesting topic to talk about first, which is the recent huge roller coaster slide we've seen on the silver and gold price market. Now, these things happen. I think it's important to note that the prices do fluctuate quite a lot, and I've seen quite a few people, certainly from the the big group order which I'm arranging through goldsilver.be. By the way, this is something I misstamped, and I was really annoyed about it because this was supposed to be a nice, as you can see, antiqued Aztec head, but the stamp slipped and it kind of didn't look right, so I didn't like that. But anyway, the roller coaster dip we've seen in the silver price. There's a lot of people on the Silver Forum who've been joining in the group order who have made comments saying, "Oh, it's typical. We've just put in this big order and then prices have slumped or slipped." Well, that's the nature of investing in precious metals, and as somebody else said on the forum, you wouldn't be doing it right if that didn't happen. So it's just one of those things. It does happen. It's life. I try and live my life without too many regrets, and I recently put in an order for some silver shot and a little bit of a spoiler, but I've got a really fun vlog video planned for later in December, because I am actually going to be travelling and picking up the shot, which is going to be exciting. So that's a little bit of a spoiler, but more of that to come in the future. Yeah, so putting in a big order for shot and then having the silver price go down as it did is obviously not great, but that's just life. It's happened the other way before for me. I've put in big orders of shot and then the silver price has jumped up. So, it sort of shoots and roundabouts, really. It goes up and down, and that's the nature of silver. So, I have always said in all of my videos along the way, in terms of how to deal with that kind of situation, emotionally, I always say don't live with regrets. It's not a loss. You haven't lost any money. Yeah, you could have got a little bit more for the money that you've spent, but ultimately when you made that purchase, hopefully you have that kind of, that mentality around in your head about why you wanted to make it, what your goals were with it, and those goals will still stand, and it's just, the way of the world, basically. So that's that's what I think about the roller coaster prices. Do people have regrets about that? Probably. A lot of people out there might well think that it's they've been hard done by, but I guess my advice is just to try and move on with it. Now, in terms of other types of mistakes, there's some really interesting things on the forum thread that I mentioned earlier, so go check it out. But some people who are brand new to silver, shared some of their experiences, and one person said that he'd bought a whole bunch of silver Britannias from a UK bullion dealer and paid a huge amount of VAT on them, and it was very expensive silver compared with what he could have got from elsewhere. So yeah, in terms of like making mistakes, I guess it's natural and normal for people to kind of make mistakes, but at the time you don't realise it's a mistake. I guess that's the human nature. When you're making that decision in that moment, you think it's right because you've evaluated it, you've made the decision, you think that's the way to go. But mistakes do happen in hindsight, and with hindsight being such a wonderful thing, I guess the lesson here is that you can learn from it, and that's really what I try and do with all of my stuff. So I wanted to share with you guys the kind of big mistake, I guess, which I've made in terms of purchases. It's not really a big mistake because it didn't cost me very much money in financial terms, but it's one of those ones, it's probably the only one which has a little niggle in my head which I go back and I think, why on earth did I buy that? Now I don't have it here because it's actually locked away somewhere in the safe, but it's that trade dollar. So you may have seen it a couple of months ago. I bought this US trade dollar, and it was marked as Tibetan silver. I didn't really know what that was at the time. This was about 3 or 4 years ago, before I really kind of got into bullion and investing in silver. It was also before I really kind of got my my head around US coinage, so I didn't really know what I was buying. I didn't really understand what I was buying, and a trade dollar in the condition that was advertised on there would have been hundreds of pounds rather than 20, 25 pounds. So I bought it thinking I had a deal, the deal of the century almost, but it really didn't work out that way. It was just a fake. So that's the nature of the world. I guess that's something I learned from as well, because even though I thought it was real for a good couple of months before I realised perhaps it wasn't, that's just the way it goes. I learned from it. I learned a lot from it, and I keep that now as a kind of memento. So I guess I'm lucky in the sense that I haven't had any huge mistakes. Having said that, I probably do have some big flops and mistakes sitting in my collection. So I guess now it's an interesting. By the way, I really do like these pieces of slag which come out from the crucible at the end of a melting cycle. This one here looks like a panhandle or something, or a ladle. It's very, very cool and very malleable at the top there. But anyway. So I guess what I was trying to say in that last bit, the last point I want to talk about, is that there are probably quite a lot of flops in my collection, and that's probably common with a lot of numismatic collectors or people who collect certain coins. The artistic-y type coins or the coloured coins, for example. There are quite a few out there, and I would imagine that there are quite a few mistakes out there too, and that's normal. I think the ones that probably spring to mind in terms of my collection are the Peter Rabbit coins. By the way, this particular one I've hammered, by the way. I haven't poured it in this shape, but the back didn't come out right and I didn't like it, so I hammer them and it gets them into the right shape to fit back down into the crucible. But yeah, the ones that spring to mind in my collection are probably the Peter Rabbit. There's also a couple of kind of coloured coins which I've purchased in the past which probably won't yield very good results. But I guess in terms of like numismatic coins and numismatic collections and things like that, the trick and part of the fun actually of the whole process is finding the gem in in the junk, or finding the gem in the collection. So with the Peter Rabbit stuff, nobody really knew that the 2016 Peter Rabbit would end up being such a huge success and having such a huge value, aftermarket value. But people did it, and the other coins in that series probably going to scrape even, if that. Yeah, it's the gems in the collection, and when you hit that gem, I guess that's the real kind of that's the thrill. That's when you've worked it out and you've got the right coin. But there will be flops along the way. So it's interesting that you don't often see a lot of those coins talked about. And let's be honest, 95% of the kind of coins in that kind of market are probably going to end up as flops. But yeah, that's just the way it goes sometimes. So yeah, I think it's a really interesting topic. I'd be very intrigued to find out what you guys think, or what flops that you've got or made, or decisions that you've made. Me generally, I don't tend to live with regrets. So whilst I've made some mistakes and whilst I've not got some, fantastic decisions made in the past, I don't try and live with regrets, because I think there's just, there's much better things to do with your time and energy than to sit on there and to sort of, not think, or just think that you've made mistakes and there's nothing else that you can do about it. Learn from them, move on, and just get on with life. That's my advice. But do share with me and with everybody in the comments, your mistakes, your regrets, if you have any, about silver, about gold, about buying silver or coins or whatever it might be. I think it's great because we'll all learn from them, and I hope you guys have learned something from my experiences, my video. And if you liked it, please put a thumbs up on it. Share it around on your social media. That would be very helpful as well. Don't forget, I've got a 2,000 subscriber giveaway on at the moment. If you haven't checked out the original video with how to enter, then please do go check it out. There's a link in the description below to that. Go and check out my website for all of my hand-poured silver as well, backyardbullion.com. Otherwise, all that I've got to say is I hope you guys have had a fantastic weekend, and please make sure that you like, share, comment and subscribe for more.